Since morning, we have been having a great discussion regarding the option of evaluating Sukuk as a tool for the sustainable economic development and growth. And in this regard, we have an amazing panel here. We have Mr. Azhar Aslam Saab, who is the country head of Islamic Banking SADC Governance Center and North at Standard Chartered Bank. We have Mr. Ijlal Alvi, a very experienced banker and international finance personality, who is the Chief Executive Officer of International Islamic Financial Market. Then we have Mr. Imtiaz Gadar, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Al Mizan Investment Management Limited, which is Pakistan's largest asset management company. And then, last but not the least, we have Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan, who is the Professor of Finance at the University of New Orleans. And he's also a professor at IBA, chairing the Hamid Habib Chair. Now, I'll start the session with requesting Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan to speak on and make a presentation. His topic is the role of education and universities in advancing the Sukuk market, building expertise, innovation, and sustainable growth. Professor Kabir Hassan.
My slides, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Slides. Okay, the title of my presentation, The Role of Education and Universities in Advancing the Sukuk Market, Building Expertise, Innovation, and Sustainable Growth. So let's start with an overview of the market. So the Sukuk is a Sharia compliance certificate representing proportional ownership in an underlying asset, project, or business venture. It is backed by tangible assets and adheres to Islamic principle, avoiding riba, gharar, and other prohibited items. Right now, the size is about 2023, 863 billion. There are over 5,000 total number of Sukuk outstanding. Year-to-year growth between 2021 to 24, about 9%. The market is going. Now, if you look at the geographic distribution, there is an anomaly. The Malaysia roughly contains about 40 to 45%. GCC, on the other hand, 35 to 45%. And the other growth markets, Turkey, Indonesia, Pakistan, about 15 to 20%. So GCC bloc follows closely, reflecting its robust economic base and supporting regulatory environment. Emerging markets like Indonesia and Turkey illustrate the growth global footprint of Sukuk beyond its historical hubs. If you look at the sectoral breakdown of the Sukuk, about 60% of them are government or quasi-government. Corporate Sukuk is about 30%, and green and sustainable Sukuk about 10%. Now, the steady rise in corporate issuance, on the other hand, a previous speaker was speaking about, also suggests increasing private sector confidence in Sharia-compliant investment. So it is not only that, there are also academic research done based on data, historical data, price data. When we talk about the credit ratings market performance, credit ratings, unfortunately, Sukuk are frequently rated by major credit agency S&P, Moody's, often mirroring the sovereign or corporate rating that exists. So and that was one of the criticism of Justice Taqi Usmani of that, because you want to conform to the conventional rating, so we compromise on many Sharia issues. Yield comparisons, they are almost equivalent, but I was told in Pakistan, the Sukuk rate 100 to 200 basis points lower. Now, default rates is roughly the same. Now, the challenge in the current Sukuk market, the regulatory harmonization, varying local, legal, and Sharia standards across jurisdictions can show cross-border issuance, as mentioned by Pakistan Stock Exchange Chairman, Chief Executive Officer. How do you attract the GCC pool of money, or the people, expatriate Pakistanis sitting in different parts of the world? Limited secondary market liquidity, investors buy and hold, that's another problem, headache for you. Innovation gaps, emerging needs, like fintech-based sukuk or sustainability sukuk, you name a green sukuk, yellow sukuk, require robust research and standard setting for broader adoption. Here comes the educational infrastructure. It's very much important. The numbers are growing. If you look at Islamic finance education providers are increased from 880 to 1,007. The Islamic finance degree is also increasing. In-person events like AlBaraka Forum is also increasing, but online is decreasing because of the less of restriction, the COVID. There is a lot of papers has been written, academic paper, PhD thesis has been written, and so on. But still, there is a university industry skill gap. What the industry wants, we do not actually provide them. And that comes from technical knowledge, from Sharia expertise, market understanding, risk analysis, and innovation capacity. So shortage in Sharia structuring expertise, stronger quantitative skill is very much lacking. Emphasis need for cross-disciplinary knowledge is so. I always say that new brand of Islamic finance scholar will be 3-in-1, Sharia, modus operandi, and IT, because without this, you really cannot move forward. So what has been the consequences of this unaddressed skill gaps? There has been reduced innovation. Without advanced modeling or Sharia expertise, new sukuk structures, hybrid ESG sukuk may stagnate. And if you look at the innovation in the sukuk spectrum, is not happening that much. Compliance risk, improperly trained staff can lead to Sharia non-compliance or legal disputes, and the market dispute confidence, investor trust may wane if issuers and arrangers cannot consistently adhere to best practices. So what are the strategies to mitigate the skill gap? Curriculum enhancement, incorporate advanced module on financial engineering, blockchain, ESG factors in Islamic finance degrees, professional development, promote continued education through certificates like AOFI, IIFM, and executive programs. Internship and apprenticeship require hands-on sukuk projects in collaboration with local or international financial institutions. Research grants and labs, establish dedicated sukuk labs within universities focusing on product design, market simulation, and compliance risk assessment. So I would ask students go to Pakistan Stock Exchange, Security Exchange Commission, they should provide this thing. Now, innovation, we talk about sustainable growth that very much related to education, product innovation, Greek sukuk initiative, social impact sukuk, technology-enabled structure, market infrastructure, like for example, digital transform trading platforms, smart contract implementation, blockchain-based issuance, and risk management. We need a different way of hedging risk in the Islamic finance contract, because Islam finance product are not this conventional finance. So we teach to our students what we teach in a conventional ecosystem. So we really all need to also improve that as well. So we need to really strengthen our research and development. Funding has to be there so the curriculum will develop. Promote cross-border collaboration. And in order to do this, we have to have the FICI harmonization, because Malaysia, if you want to Malaysian investor to come in and Pakistan was going there, we have to do that. Expand tech-focused curriculum. Incorporate modules like sustainability, Islamic finance degree program must incorporate this technical skill, and this is very much missing. Integrate ESG principle, this is a buzzword right now, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Last two slides. So what I suggest is strengthen university-industry collaboration, establish joint research labs and industry-sponsored chairs focusing on emerging sukuk structures, ESG framework and fintech applications, facilitate internship and apprenticeship programs so students gain real-life experience in sukuk issuance, risk management, and product development, enhance curricular design, incorporate advanced modules on financial engineering, Sharia governance, ESG principle, and fintech like blockchain within the Islamic finance degrees, develop multidisciplinary case studies reflecting cross-border sukuk transactions to cultivate practical skills and good market awareness, promote innovation and sustainable finance, encourage research grants and competitive scholarships that target green sukuk, social impact sukuk, and other ESG compliant instruments. Align academic programs and university research centers with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to foster responsible long-term growth. Cross-skill gaps via specialized training, offer professional certification in collaboration with AOFI, AO, IIFM, IFSB. We have Mr. Ijaz Albi is here, that address the Sharia law, financial modeling, and compliance, provide fintech-focused workshops and digital simulation platforms, allowing students to design and issue sukuk in virtual environment. Strengthen global regulatory harmonization. Universities should host regular dialogues with regulators and standard-setting bodies to share research outcomes and streamline Sharia governance. Pursue cross-border academic alliances that unify curriculum standards, thereby reducing fragmentation in international sukuk issuance. So we have harmonization, standardization is very much needed. Foster a culture of continuous learning. Encourage lifelong learning initiatives, executive education programs, online courses to keep professionals updated on new sukuk products and market trends. Integrate digital accreditation platforms that recognize micro-credentials, ensuring ongoing skill upgrades in a rapidly evolving finance landscape. And as a visiting professor of Hamid D. Habib Chair at IBA Karachi, I am given the task of designing few classes for the undergrad that will make the minor and they can really go to the job market. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair, Professor Kabir. And the recommendation that you have discussed, I'm happy to share that in Pakistan, alhamdulillah, the Islamic financial industry is already addressing and catering to a few of those suggestions already, especially the linkages between the industry and academia. Alhamdulillah, we have multiple examples of these kind of collaborations here, which inshallah will be fostering for the Islamic financial growth in Pakistan. Now, moving on to our next speaker, if I may request Mr. Azhar Aslam, who is the country head of Islamic Banking, SADC, to present his presentation on the topic Global Overview on the International Sukuk and Debt Market from the experience of a Standard Chartered Bank. Azhar Aslam, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you. Can I have the presentation, please? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for waiting patiently after lunch. What's happening in Pakistan, what's happening in sustainable sukuk space, the journey that Pakistan financial ecosystem is, alhamdulillah, going through since April 2022 with the historic federal Sharia court judgment that came through almost 3 years ago. What I'm here to talk about is how we can bring global best practices from our international experience. Alhamdulillah, Standard Chartered Bank is the only international bank in Pakistan with its license to have Islamic banking operations. And we have been trying to play a thought leadership role in facilitating this journey that Pakistan ecosystem has been for the last 30 years or so. Can I have the Before I start, I just want to give you an overview of where Standard Chartered stands globally. Standard Chartered is the leading US dollar sukuk provider on the league table for the last 10 years, on the US dollar sukuk league table. A lot of numbers have been quoted, so I won't go into details, but just to give context, in 2024, approximately $119 billion of fresh sukuks were issued globally, out of which $82 billion were issued in GCC, up from $56 billion in 2023. Sustainable finance sukuks globally, fresh issuances were $45 billion, increase of 23% over 2023. And over the next 5 years or so, the annual issuance of global sukuks is expected to increase to $500 billion annual issuances, which is circa $200 billion as we speak. The total global debt is $133 trillion. So sukuks is a very small fraction today, but as a number of speakers have mentioned in their presentations, it's a growing market, and it's a market which is increasingly providing Sharia compliant solutions to sovereigns, to private sector, to public sector, and FIs across the globe. When I move forward in my presentations, I'll show you some case studies where we even have made and facilitated issuance of sukuks for countries like Singapore and United Kingdom. So on the summary of sukuk structures, in Pakistan, as most of you know, there is widely used one sukuk structure, which is Ijara based structure, which has been the case for sovereign primarily. But globally, there are at least 6 more variants. These are broad 6 variants that they exist. One is a combination of Mudaraba and commodity Murabaha, which is a tradable security structure. Second one is Wakala Sukuk, which is a combination of Ijara, commodity Murahaba. Again, a tradable security structure. Then Wakala Sukuk of Ijara and project assets. We have spoken since morning, some speakers have spoken about funding being available for long-term projects that the government or private sector may be setting up in Pakistan. Again, this is a long-term tradable security. There's a Wakala Sukuk on Ijara, government services and commodity Murahaba. Fifth one is the Wakala Sukuk, which is basically based on rights to travel services. I was told over lunch by a senior colleague that recently a leading telecom provider has used this structure in Pakistan for a sukuk issuance. And last but not the least is the Salam Sukuk, which is a short-term but non-tradable security structure. So I'll give you a color on what's happening globally. 3-4 markets which are leading sukuk issuance markets globally. Saudi Arabia, because of the mere size and scale of the economy, has been leading the way in terms of their domestic sukuk program. Their Ministry of Finance, which is equivalent of our Ministry of Finance in Pakistan, has come through a national debt management. The center was established in 2017, and they've come with the local sukuk issuance program, which is the first local sukuk program established in the Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and it provides up to 30 years tenors of sukuks issued in Saudi Arabia in local currency. This sukuk structure is based on Mudaraba plus commodity Murahaba, and 67% of the issuance proceeds invested by the SPV under Mudaraba will remain proceeds applied towards commodity Mudaraba. So it's a combination of commodity Murahaba and Mudaraba structure with 67% commodity Murahaba structure on underlying. In addition to the local sukuk program, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia also have an international sukuk program, which is again a combination of Mudaraba and commodity Murahaba. And this issuance, up to 51% of the proceeds are structured under the commodity Mudaraba structure. Moving on, UAE is another market where we have been actively facilitating issuance of sukuks. Again, there is a domestic sukuk program and there's an international sukuk program with the help of the UAE Central Bank. And this structure has also been widely used for both local and international sukuks that the government of UAE has issued. Moving on, Bahrain. As you know, Bahrain has emerged as an international center of Islamic banking with IOFI headquartered in Bahrain. And there is a Salam Sukuk structure, which is a short-term Sukuk structure for up to 3 months. As most of you know, in Pakistan, the shortest tenor Sukuk that exists for the sovereign is 1 year. And to have a profit yield curve equivalent to the interest rate yield curve, it's imperative that we have 3, 6 month, 1, 3 and 6 month Sukuks issuance as well. And again, this is a structure that can be replicated in Pakistan if you want to issue shorter sovereign Sukuks. There is a repo mechanism underlying this structure as well. and there is a clearing and settlement system which can be used in Pakistan as well. This again resonates with the various discussions that we've had since morning on how to develop the local domestic Sukuk market to convert the 40 trillion rupee circa government debt that exists in Pakistan on the conventional basis. As most of you know, government of Pakistan is the biggest borrower, and until and unless there is a robust program based on a combination of various structures used globally, it will be very difficult to convert. And if I may repeat what Irfan Saab said, it may be almost impossible to convert the entire financial ecosystem if we do not convert the government debt over the next 3 years. Malaysia is slightly different, but a very robust Sukuk market. There is an interbank money market was established by the Bank Negara, and they have the leading local currency Sukuk issuer globally for their local market, both for the sovereign and private sector. And they have used some innovative structures, for example, rights to travel. There are vouchers which are used as rights to travels for services that they use. And it's a combination of Ijara, government services, and commodity murahaba investment. It's an innovative structure, very widely used in Malaysia, and one of the structures which maybe over a period of time we can use in Pakistan also. What we really need to see is that how various stakeholders, ministry, the government, central bank, academia, scholars, bankers, all come together and use these various structures over the next few years to convert the debt that exists in Pakistan. Indonesia is another market which they have called, they call the Sukuk Negara. This was debuted in 2008. The statutory bills, they call them, are used for local Islamic finance, market development, and cash management tenor up to 6 months. This is the short-term tenor Sukuk that they have. And these Sukuk structures are again used for both domestic and international programs. Some case studies very quickly in interest of time. So Government of Pakistan, as you all know, we've been talking about it since morning, that they have an Ijara Sukuk structure that exists in Pakistan. This was initiated in 2008, and over the last almost 17 years, a lot of work has been done in this space. But this has its limitations in terms of how many assets can be used for a Sukuk program in Pakistan. Then there is a UAE AED denominated multi-year trust certificate which has a maturity, which was issued in 2023. And again, we have worked very closely with the Debt Management Office of UAE to get this Sukuk structure issued. This is based on Ijara and Murahaba structure. There's a Sultanate of Oman Sukuk, again a sovereign Sukuk, which is on 100% Ijara. As I said in the beginning, these are markets which have Islamic finance be dominant, but Standard Chartered Bank through their global office has structured Sukuks even for countries like UK, and this was part of the 5-year fixed rate Sukuk that was issued in 2014. This was again based on 100% Ijara. We've also issued a Sukuk for the government of Singapore. This was again based on Ijara, and this was for the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Last but not least, I would like to highlight a challenge that exists globally, which is a brewing challenge, which is the Standard 62, for which feedback has been given to IOFI. I consider that this is a forum where, from Pakistan, we should also give this feedback that we need to be pragmatic in terms of implementation of the Standard 62. That standard really what requires is moving of assets from the balance sheet of the issuer, which has its own challenges in terms of whether that can be done in terms of having the asset moved from the balance sheet of the issuer. There are repossession risk involved, pricing risk involved, and most importantly, this can seriously limit the growth of Sukuk program in global markets, including Pakistan. I would also like to highlight that the work that we have been doing with the Ministry of Finance and the State Bank of Pakistan on a hybrid sukuk structure for Pakistan conversion of debt. So over the last 12 months or so, we have had various conversations with stakeholders in Pakistan along with the International Commodity Murahaba platform to see how best we can replicate the best practices from other markets. Those discussions are now in final stages, and there are stakeholders from across the industry at this forum, and therefore I will request them to please facilitate the approvals that are required to get this going in the next few weeks or so. Last but not least is the Green Sukuk program that we have been facilitating, the Government of Pakistan and the State Bank. So we have had various conversations with State Bank of Pakistan on sustainable finance and sustainable sukuk program, and we have been replicating these possibilities of bringing sustainable finance solutions to Pakistan over the last few years by having thought leadership programs along with the government and leading FIs in Pakistan. My only request in the end is that this is a long journey. This has to be embraced. And this requires support from all stakeholders, not necessarily in this order, but starting from bankers, academia, regulator, Sharia scholars, legal counsels, and last but not the least, clients. Until and unless the clients are educated and we hold their hand in terms of this transformation, they will be hesitant and they will be reluctant to accept solutions which are Sharia compliant. And in order to make this a sustainable conversion, we need to make sure that we provide solutions which are bespoke solutions for every client, especially wholesale bank clients. Because each client would have their own needs, and therefore it's people in this room and wider industry bodies which have to work together closely to make sure that we can make this happen over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Azhar Aslam Saab, for the overview of the global sukuk issuance, not just in Pakistan, but globally. Now, if I may request Mr. Ijlal Ahmed Alvi, who is the Chief Executive Officer at International Islamic Financial Markets from Bahrain, and his topic of discussion would be the impact of standardized sukuk in enhancing the global financial markets. Mr. Ijlal Alvi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First, thank you to AlBaraka Forum for inviting me from Bahrain. It's indeed a pleasure to be here in the home country. I have not visited for some time, but doesn't mean that we are not really attached with Pakistan. And we have been, working with State Bank also. I have a main role, as you know, is developing standard documentation, which we have been doing for the last 16, 17 years. And alhamdulillah, we have produced 19 standards, including sukuk. And I think some of the things that you have mentioned, which I think in terms of the sukuk, I will mention a few other things other than standards. We do, apart from standards, also our sukuk reports. So some of the numbers being mentioned, I will not go over, but few things I've noticed which I will mention. Main thing when you are looking into standardize is really the process. And I will cover the 62 also. Is how you develop your standards, and alhamdulillah our standards are now some of them which are more in the hedging side also. Liquid band are there for 15 years, and of course as a standard setting you have to review also sometime, but the way the process is we don't need to really change anything. That is important. We keep track as a standard. And the starting point for any standard, in our experience, is looking at your consultative phase, where you basically see what are the issues. Of course, you don't take any product. Repo is mentioned, which is a different product, but difficult for Islamic. We have alternative, which you have mentioned. I think that can be used in Pakistan. But that's the starting point. So if you have a red line, naturally you don't go in that direction. You continue to work. But if there is something which alternative is there for scholars in particular to see industry, that's how we move. So consultative phase is one which is our starting point. And that's where we streamline. If you see our recent paper, you'll see on our website is on the syndication documentation. Sukuk, we have done some years back, and at that time, this is 2008. I think one thing which I don't want to, sort of raise a red flag, but we also at that time, because the Sukuk default didn't happen till the financial crisis. And at that time, there was, a lot of talk about, how Sukuk legally will behave. What would be the Sharia reasoning, whether you have, asset, you can reach the assets, and, what would be the case. It was also at that time we saw, because you have international Sukuk issuances, 4 main segments. Government is about 55% globally. About 29 currencies is being issued. And then you have sort of corporate, which is still, I think, globally also, apart from Malaysia, it's not really that grown yet. You have quasi-sovereign, and there you have to see, transparency when you do any standard is very important. So you have basically quasi-sovereign, which could be explicit government guarantee or implicit. And these things were highlighted when you are sort of, doing it. So creation of transparency is critical. Your sort of issues which you tackle in the standard is the next phase, which you do. Of course, with our sort of, we are infrastructure institution, only development reasoning. We are created by central banks, including IDB. And our whole role is to develop the, industry, and unification is the key. So we sort of look into, working with everybody, like you mentioned, for standard setting bodies is critical. Once we have our, funding side is done, that what we do, and banks, inshallah, will be, joining in this process of, our standard we develop. We do a market, and we always have, these standards are very high quality. So these international banks, like Chartered Bank is one of our board member also, your global head. We sort of look at a very high quality, which can be used, by international market, by international banks, including Islamic, and jurisdictionally also. So we have a working group, which we hire an international law firm. We have very special arrangement with these big law firms, because the quality has to be good. We have our own Sharia board and some common scholars with AOFI. We circulate 3 drafts for consultation. So in Pakistan market also, I would like to see that institution come forward, provide us the comment when the draft come. So they can sort of, when we do the initial draft, we know what is available. In some cases, some bespoke agreements are available, or documentation, or border confirmation. So we take it from there, 3 drafts from the industry, and then we go to our Sharia board, which is the final authority. You have AOFI, we don't duplicate, but we see AOFI, the general sort of, I think it's Sukuk 17, I think they have previous standard, if I'm correct to say. So that's what sort of, if it is there, if the new standard is being talked, then we see that we use as a basis. But there are a number of things which I will briefly mention. We need to also see from our Sharia in that case. So once we sort of go through that process, it could take us, and we have institutions who work with us, so it's not something we work in isolation. It's important, once you finish, there are sort of implementation is there. People can take it, institution can take it, even some corporate can also, and others. And what we sort of seen that, with this exercise, with the practical approach also in place, our standard, as you would know, alhamdulillah, are, quite widely used in various jurisdictions. And what in terms of the Sukuk, we have 2 documentation standards in Sukuk. One is Ijara Sukuk documentation, other is Tier 1 Mudaraba. So what you have in the sort of, as I was saying, you have 4 main sort of issuers. Other one which I didn't mention was the FI. In Pakistan, you have not issued any Mudaraba Tier 1, I think, as of yet, in local market. In international market, there's been issued, dollar-based also, Sukuk. FI generally are doing the Mudaraba now, and there is no, as you know, in the Mudaraba, we don't have any guarantee. It has to be sort of taken as equity or a quasi-equity. In international market, just for information, there was Credit Suisse issue, which was there in 22, 23. And the Swiss court took entire T1 sukuk as, nothing was paid to the holders, $17 billion. So that wasn't the conventional. But we have seen, less sukuk issuances, or very few from, Abu Dhabi Islamic did issue 23 tier 1 sukuk in dollar market. But it was mostly domestic issuance that's still happening. So it has not really affected. And that's another area which maybe in Pakistan can be seen also. And tier 1, what you have is when you develop, and we talked about asset-based, asset-backed. And in my humble opinion, I've seen, previous, when I was in the bank, you have two different segments. Asset-backed meet the different requirement. You title transfer, you have to have a registration, there's a cost. You cannot really just sort of, that's why, and beneficial interest, as per, my understanding and with the scholars we work, and others, it's not haram something. It is beneficial interest is there. You have beneficial ownership. And that's how, I would say about 100% sukuks are on that basis. Having said that, you develop the asset-backed also. That is fine. We can do documentation, inshallah. But that is to be kept in mind. When we are doing, we have to see, how practically it will work. Here also you have beneficial difference, as was mentioned by the professor. One of the differences that you need to have underlying assets, right? Either you can have services, as we mentioned, either you have tangible assets, you have intangible assets. So there are various, options available on which sukuks are issued. So our tier 1, what you have to see, when you have, assign any asset, could be segregated assets, or it could be commingled. Generally, it is commingled when you do. And commingled, you cannot segregate things. So that element, to see the seniority within your capital structure, that has to be also looked at by, maybe issuer can make it transparent, or investors, that information should be available. So that's one of the things in the Mudaraba Sukuk, which in particular, in terms of the ranking, we have sort of highlighted. When it's come to, and there are 3 documents what we have issued. So there is a prospectus there for perpetual sukuk. There is a master Mudaraba agreement. Murahaba is said so many times that my mind is, it is not really, it is over-reliance in some cases. We have, I will mention where Murahaba is used mostly, if you allow me. A few minutes I will inshallah mention with our experience. So you have, master Mudaraba agreement, and you have declaration of trust. So these are the 3 documents which you can use in basically putting together your sukuk. So we have provided that basis for you to do. In sukuk, one thing is there in some extent, most of our standards, banks take it and they can sort of within that assess with their legal, Sharia, and market and operational department, and or central banks can do the same and can use it and they can sign. Sukuk in particular, the difference when we were doing it, we made it clear also that you cannot really standardize the entire sukuk, documentation. You will not know what kind of assets would be there. So these are sort of things in sukuk you have to work, either with, of course, with the lawyers, with the banks, with arrangers. So this is one difference in sukuk. So we have 3 in case of Mudaraba, which is not much documentation-wise, and it helps if you have, because often it's said that there is a cost attached to sukuk, in terms of documentation. So we are providing that, to help the industry, markets, and Pakistan also. In Ijara, we have 7 documentation. So that includes your prospectus, your lease agreement, your sale and purchase agreement, because Ijara you can provide undertaking, you can guarantee, right? Unlike Mudaraba. So you have purchase undertaking, you have a service agency agreement, you have a purchase undertaking, so there is a sale, purchase, sale substitution, if you want to substitution assets, what would be the case? And we have clearly from our Sharia said that it has to be tangible assets. Some cases it could be, for some reason, I think it is fair to say that you can use financial assets also in some cases in Ijara. It does happen. But from our Sharia, it's just guidance is that it's tangible assets. And then what you have to see when Ijara, especially if it's an, machinery, for example, so what would be the total loss? So that is also one thing which one has to see. And from our standard, 70% if it is economically not performing and you have a, let's say fire, God forbid, then you basically, it is total loss event. Few things, if you allow me, I will just mention in terms of the international sukuk issuances. Your sukuk, basically given the importance internationally as of IFSB 23, and we also collect data from different jurisdictions, including Pakistan. So our report was 13th edition November, and some of the numbers matches. So we sort of looked at it. IFSB also issues stability report. So industry size was 3.23 trillion. Sukuk is around 25% of that, around, as per our calculation, about $880 billion. Now could be reaching trillion, as said. What you have also in terms of the sukuk, different structures. You have, short-term sukuk and mostly domestic jurisdictions. There was an adjustment by Malaysia in 2015 because they used to have sukuk short-term for 3 months, 6 months, or up to 1 year in investment purposes also. So they were using maybe some other structure. They moved to purely for liquidity management. Since then, other countries have joined. So at that time, there was a gap, drop. And I always, when I present, I mention that this drop is nothing wrong with the market. It was not 2008 situation when the market nearly stopped. It was due to strategic decision by a major jurisdiction. They decided to do short-term sukuk for only liquidity management. And I think here also you need short-term sukuk. And that is really something which you need to have. And they moved to structure of murabaha. So that is not tradable, but they sort of decided that. So sometime if you don't have alternative, you move. My sort of, we always say that you have to reduce the over-reliance. That's the first step. Because in some cases, if you have 40 trillion in Pakistan, in the conventional, it is a huge amount. So you have to have different sort of options available for you to use different structure. Previously, when Hong Kong issued some years back, Ijara was the only sovereigns were issuing only Ijara. Then over the years we have seen now sovereigns move to Wakala to provide that, it was mentioned in the morning also, asset light. So that is also, I think, to continue the industry move. Our Mashaikh, mashallah, they have reasoning, they know, what they are approving. So that is also we have seen. We have also seen in terms of structures that domestically, like I said, Murahaba could be more, but internationally it is more Wakala, and it could be pure hybrid, different structures as mentioned in our report is there. And I mentioned about short term, what could be the case. It could be, in some cases, very limited musharaka structures are there. And we use very few project financing where it is involved in the Sasna contract. And that's, I think, area which one has to see. What I think interesting things, there are two things I would like to mention before I end, which would be helpful, inshallah, is from Bahrain perspective. Bahrain is the first issuer of short-term sukuk way back in 2006 or 2002. And then till 2008, they were issuing in dollar. Then they stopped. They are now issuing in domestic currency, which is BD. ILM, the name is a little different. We are different. They issue the domestic international sukuk, high quality, around $13 to $14 billion each year in the short term. They are the only one if somebody, banks want to buy a dollar sukuk, the ILM is the only one. So, and then sort of what we have seen in terms of short-term sukuk issuances, countries like Indonesia, Turkey, there small companies are issuing sukuk for, I've seen up to $500,000. Very small size, could be wakala structure, and these are 3 months, 6 months, up to 1 year. It could be SMEs, very small, entities, and they're, doing it fairly good job. So these are regular issuances, and we have seen these issuances, across the board. It could be something in sustainable way also. In Turkey, there is one agriculture-based issued. There are on the blockchain, also IT, we have seen issuances from Indonesia. So that's another good thing. In Bahrain, what we have is auction, like in Pakistan you have, but not in the Islamic, is, when the auction comes, now bank has made an arrangement, ABC Islamic, I can quote them, is that they have given option to small depositor. Then when the bid comes, on the auction comes, you basically can go up to $2,500 only. So depositor have the option, if the rate of deposit rate is too low, then they can go to the CBB Sukuk, which is a government risk, and rate is fair. It's quite close to what you have, the international benchmark rate. That is what. So that's an interesting development. So these are, I think, some of the things what we see in the international market, that these are small issuers. From Malaysia, of course, is there also, which we have seen, which previously was not there. So now you see there's issuances. You have mentioned green, of course, we cover that part. As of 23, you mentioned the numbers, so they are pretty much around 53 billion as of our calculation. And we have seen, in terms of, various segments like also Majid Al-Futam from corporate, they have issued for reserves, oil, water related, reserves and other, green malls and, properties wise. So we have, good example which, can, help us here also, inshallah. So I think I've taken a lot of time, but I will, end because I have a number of things, but I better end now. So thanks for that, giving me time. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Isdalza. During your discussion, you have already addressed few of the questions that I'll be posing. So I was supposed to pose. So now, moving on to our next speaker, Mr. Imtiaz Gadar, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Al-Mizan Investment Management Limited. And his topic of presentation is asset management, leveraging mutual funds to expand Sukuk investments. Mr. Imtiaz Gadar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you Farhan for the introduction, and also thanks a lot to the AlBaraka Forum for allowing us to be a small part of this very grand and noble initiative that you've undertaken. Again, given my background, I've been asked to speak about the role of mutual funds in the development of the Sukuk market. So here's a brief presentation to just back the discussion with some numbers as well. Now, mutual funds, as we all know, at the core of it, the role is to mobilize the savings from the financial system and channel it through the investment. Now, seems like a fairly straightforward function, but I think before we go into role of mutual funds, and what I think is also very important to set the perspective of how this very basic investment chain in Pakistan, the food chain, has problems at different stages, which we need to incorporate when we look at the progress and also plan the way forward. So for example, very basic finance one-on-one, but really if you look at this, there is, from a Pakistan perspective, some unique characteristics at every stage. Income-wise, again, not the greatest story in the global map. We are, by most definitions, a low-income country, at least as far as the formal economy is concerned. In addition to the constrained income, some by choice and some by behavior, the savings ratio is also very low. I mean, if you look at the numbers, then we report low double digits saving rates, whereas the world economy will show you numbers north of 25%. Within this, a very important distinction to make, that not all savings make it to investments in Pakistan. That's a very big distinction, because there is this certain level of money that will go under the pillow, and then there is this money that will go to the committees. So obviously that's not purely investments. Now, even when we go to the next leg of savings converting to investments, there also, when we talk about the financial system, where we talk about the mutual funds or even the banks coming in, what they get is the residual that's left over after the mandatory allocation to real estate and gold. So after that, whatever comes to the financial system, obviously there are two routes. One is the direct investments and the other is via mutual funds. So if you look at the progress of mutual funds, I think it's phenomenal considering what we have seen in terms of the constraints. Now, if you look at the slides, none of the numbers I would say are less than impressive. But really, when you talk about the corporate AUMs growing by 59% over the last 3 years per annum, industry growing by 68%, but we take a lot of comfort that the industry is headed in the right direction, that the retail AUMs have grown by an average growth rate of 86% over the last 3 years, and taken that number to almost 1.9 trillion now. Of this, if you further dissect the data, one of the things that we always talk about, that given the option, masses in Pakistan would want to invest in a Sharia compliant structure. And that is what the numbers show. Again, if you look at the 10-year CAGR of conventional AUMs, very impressive, 22%. But again, the Islamic CAGR of 37.7% tells us that the inherent demand for Islamic is definitely much higher. The market share that you see here is 44.2% over the overall industry going to Sharia compliant. But all the banking sector colleagues that are sitting here know that the December number was a little distorted on the Islamic AUM side because of all the ADR stuff that was happening in the system. But still, nonetheless, these numbers have been fairly phenomenal. In terms of categories as well, again, some part is to blame for what has been happening with the PSX over the last 4 or 5 years, barring the last 2 years. But as you see, and Farooq has suddenly become attentive because I said PSX, but yeah, so this was to catch your attention. But yeah, that was the point, that between 2017 and 2023, the market was relatively very listless. So what you saw was a gradual shift towards the fixed income side that happened. So now, as you see, both in the conventional and in the Islamic segment, there is almost 90% of the allocation is to fixed income, and the same is with the Sharia compliant. Now that kind of covers the kind of demand that's there for Islamic instruments, but that's just not from a demand perspective. Even the largest borrower in the room, which is the government of Pakistan, clearly has realized this trend, and this speaks bodes positive for the future of the Sukuk market. So if you look at the borrowing stock of the government of Pakistan as of June 2024, almost 89% of the borrowing was conventional, whereas 11% was coming from the Sharia compliant. Over the past 7 months, this is data updated up till mid-Jan. So if you see the incremental borrowing, 34% of that has come from the Sharia compliant avenues, whereas 66% has come from conventional. So the incremental borrowing is gradually, shifting towards the Sharia compliant as well, which again, as I said, is a great story for us to unravel going forward and to play the Sukuk market. Now, while having set the stage for what the demand dynamics look like, and clearly the supply intent is definitely there from the government as well. They have their own constraints. We'll cover a couple of them, but how do we leverage mutual funds as a better vehicle for the Sukuk market? So again, we're just covering a few things that what can propel this relationship further. I think one of the things that was discussed was the duration of the Ijara Sukuk. Again, while there are a few private parties that have really used this class to borrow money, but the biggest borrower in the whole economy remains the government of Pakistan. It's the current shortest tenor that's available for Ijara Sukuk is 1 year. Now, this 1 year paper also came in the market almost 2 years ago. Early 2023 was the first time this was launched. And if you look at the growth of the mutual fund industry in the last 2 years, you will realize that this was a watershed moment. This was really something that unlocked the growth of the mutual fund industry as well, and of the Sukuk related market as well. Now, going forward, we understand that work is happening on this front, but really bringing in Sukuks for 3 and 6 months maturity, I think they can be really defining. The use case in the market is already there, what you see happening in the conventional market, but even if you look at the demand that comes from investors in terms of short term, there is no 3 and 6 month paper. So once we have that in the market, I think that could provide another trigger of growth, just like the 1 year Sukuk did 2 years ago. The other one, I think a couple of the panelists also touched upon that, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but when you speak to the government of Pakistan and ask them that, why 34% has already been raised from Sharia compliant and why not more? Because clearly the demand is still very much there. So one of the problems that they face is supply of assets. Some of it is related to the bureaucracy. Having clean, unencumbered assets is not easy for the people who are designing Sukuks for the government of Pakistan. So I think asset light, again, I'll not go into the modalities. A couple of panelists have already gone into that, but asset light seems really to be the way forward. Again, understand a lot of work is happening on this. and you know, quoting even the debt office, when you speak to them, they say this could be something that could also help achieve the target for turning the whole system Sharia compliant by the end of 2027, because one of the big issues is converting the current outstanding stock of conventional debt into Islamic. So again, asset light is something that could really resolve that issue. Vibrant secondary market, I think Farooq Sahab touched upon this. PSX has done a wonderful job in terms of rolling out a primary market platform where all the auctions for these sukuks are now held at the PSX, but some technical issues, and I think Farooq Sahab quoted 1 or 2 weeks, so we keep our fingers crossed that those technical issues are sorted out and all the market participants, especially the bank, come to this platform, because having a vibrant secondary market is just going to be that much more beneficial. I think one of the factors that equities remains popular at PSX is because of the liquidity. You know that you can get in and out fairly easily. So once this market becomes more vibrant with, you know, the PSX and SBP on board, I think that's going to be another great moment. I'll just end my talk with, you know, really one more thing that is going to be probably very important in leveraging not just mutual funds, but everyone. The whole ecosystem is also the whys of Islamic finance. I think a wonderful work has been done on the whats over the years, that what constitutes a Sharia compliant instrument. You know, a lot of innovation has happened around it. But I think going forward, as we head to a full-scale conversion, I think all of us as you know, Islamic finance participants need to also work on propagating the whys a little bit more in terms of why this is really the fairest, most sustainable, most progressive solution that's out there. And I think that conviction growing will just, you know, help us achieve the goal of conversion to Islamic system in letter and spirit more effectively. So that's about it. Those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Imtiaz. Now, before taking questions from the audience, I would like to pose just one question, and the same question to each panelist that we have. Based on your experience, international as well, we have local players and experienced professionals. As the government of Pakistan intends to convert the whole economy into Islamic within the next 3 years, inshallah, the basic challenge, the biggest challenge that they are facing right now is the conversion of its domestic and international debt. So now from that perspective, what do you think? I'll start off from Professor Kabir. What do you think, how we can use this tool of sukuk in the best possible manner to convert this domestic or international interest-based borrowing by the government of Pakistan into Sharia compliant with the use of sukuk?
Hello. So you asked me a very difficult question because we do not have a experience like this in the world. We had this Iranian that because of revolution, we had one in Sudan, but that also drifted apart. Right now, what I gather during this 1-week visit to Pakistan from the Pakistani scholar, that everybody afraid that this 60% of the government debt, about $250 billion, I believe, right, in terms of USD. Now, how do you convert? Forget about the international part, because let's try to deal with the domestic one. And one of the criticism that I hear that there is not enough asset in order for sukuk to be used. I mean, ijara sukuk is also very prominent because everybody understands is easy to sell, but with the ijara, still, it's a short-term financing. And it is still a viable one, but we really need to go to the long term. Now the question is, everybody is, what to do? And it's part of also the education system we grew up with. I'm originally from Bangladesh, now I live in the United States. I can see the difference. Our education system is very much within the platform. We never really think out of the box. So now we have been forced by constitutional amendment, we have to do it. So that force really will force us to come up with a new solution. And for this one, I would urge the Pakistani financial industry community to be together. Those Islamic as well as conventional. I would say the Islamic scholars, the industry has more, not only that they have to come up with the solution, but also have to convince, encourage for the conventional one to come forward to come up with a solution.
Thank you. Ji, Azhar Saab.
Thank you, Ji. If I just might elaborate on what I said during my presentation, we need operational efficiency. We need operational efficiency to get the solution executed. We have it on paper. We've had multiple discussions, conferences, forums, working groups. We've had it all in the last 3 years or so. If I may say so with all humbleness, key stakeholders need to show the will to get this done. It's not a problem about there's a structure not available or a solution is not available or the people don't have the willingness to do it. It's that collaboration of operational efficiency of each and every stakeholder, getting down to it and not walking out of that session or room until we get it done. It's as simple as that. It may sound a little less pragmatic, but that's what it really. And the biggest example would be, if you really want to get something done, you get everybody in a room, and you agree that we will not walk out of this place until unless we've sorted out a practical, executable solution. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Yes, Bismillah. I think I have 3 things. One is you have to, look at the structure's diversity. So whether you like it or not, you may have to, maybe in some cases do the Murabah structure also. But there are other structures that's, combination sukuk structure, different contracts. We have few standards. I've mentioned documentation. We can do some more, inshallah, with the industry recommendation. And, we work for globally, so other recommendations should also come. So that's, I think one has to see an approach of, not sticking one will not work, given the huge amount, and naturally, diversifying is very important. So you can take that approach, which I mentioned, like short-term strategy, short-term sukuk strategy. You can have long-term. We have long-term sukuk now up to 30 years. Even, sustainable finance sukuk or sustainability sukuks, 30. Some are 50 years also. In Malaysia, they have issued. If I'm correct to say, there are up to 100 years also. Private placement, we missed, I think, one point which is important to create transparency. In our report, we do get some information on private placement, but that should be highlighted, and that you have this private segment market. So one is the structure diversity. Other one is, it was mentioned, cash link waqf sukuk. That sukuk structure, what Indonesia has, I know IDB is looking at, is the government issues, and basically what the profit is, basically the sukuk investor, that goes into projects. And these are, another thing one has to see, generally waqf is, for perpetual. But in case of Indonesia, they have this, waqf with the time. So that to be, discussed with the scholars, with the industry players. But that's another, I think one can look into the cash link waqf sukuk. Or waqf sukuk. It's a good way to provide that social side. I think we are concentrating more on the financial aspect. Always profitability being bank naturally, but social element for Islamic is very important. So that is have to be looked. Thirdly, I would say looking at the law. When we have ijara sukuk, we have built it in a way that it meets the requirement of civil law and common law. I think in Pakistan you have civil law probably, which is codified maybe. So that is also have to be seen, how well that works. And then you have a pending, and Dr. Umar will come, inshallah, he is the expert. And I have a pleasure of working with you for many years. It is basically looking at your close-out netting law, which is really important. I know the legislation is there for a long time. It not only used in your sort of product like hedging, but it also used in product like your repo type also. If you have, sort of buy-sell type of structures, which you need to have anyway for liquidity management. So these are, I think, law side is also to be looked at. would be important. So with this note, I think that should be enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Imtiaz, please.
So I guess we've touched upon a lot of the technical aspects. I think there is this finer element, I think, even of awareness and dialogue at the stakeholder level, because as we keep hearing, very basic stuff like just getting an asset out from a particular ministry or a department to launch a sukuk has been a problem, and I'm sure you know that more than anyone else on the floor. So I think while we are going for this whole conversion, I think it's high time that we try to work out a way that at least these bottlenecks do not come in. I mean, as it is, it's a Herculean task. It's it's going to require a lot of effort. So I think that's these low-hanging roadblocks. You usually talk about low-hanging fruits. I think here we need to talk about low-hanging roadblocks. They at least need to be moved out of the way so we can do this transition quicker and more smoother. So I think that awareness, even at the stakeholder level, that this does not mean that your assets should go away. The typical Urdu newspaper headline, "Girvi rakhwa diya," and all of that stuff. I think we need to really address that. And I just feel that if at the stakeholder level there is a will, we've seen stuff when there is a will, a lot of things get done. I think this also needs to be taken up seriously, that if this is an executable structure, the last thing that should come in between is some guy who does not understand financial structuring or Islamic finance and becomes an actual roadblock in that instrument. So this is, I think, one of the low-hanging fruits. I think, again, we'll have to do a lot of the technical stuff we discussed, but let's just do away with this low-hanging roadblock first, and then I think we'll progress faster.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Imtiaz. Now, keeping in view the shorter of time, I'll just be taking 2 questions from the floor. So if we have any questions from here, then okay. Yes, gentlemen, please introduce yourself and please hand over the mic.
मेरा नाम अर्जुन कुमार है, मैं एक ज़राई माहिर हूँ। मैं काफ़ी ध्यान से जो है मिस्टर कबीर हसन के जो रिकमेंडेशंस थी वो सुन रहा था, लेकिन मुझे थोड़ा सा और वे ऑफ चाहिए कि जैसा कि मेरे जो कुछ जो हैं लोग वो NIC में स्टार्टअप लिया हुआ है या और एक डिपार्टमेंट मेरा बड़ा काम है ना, तो उसमें सुकूक को मैं किस तरह जो है मज़ीद उसको मोबिलाइज़ कर सकता हूँ, थोड़े से मुझे रहनुमाई चाहिए। तो मैंने कहा अगर कबीर साहब इस पर मेरी कोई मदद कर सकते हैं इसमें तो बड़ी मेहरबानी होगी।
ओके, आप बताइएगा मैंने आपके सवाल को सही समझा और सही तर्जुमा कर रहा हूँ। He wants to ask a question that he has got certain investments made in certain conventional avenues. Now he wants to invest in sukuk. So what are the options? Why would he invest in sukuk?
Sure. I mean, because getting scholar in Islamic finance, try to understand. So I'm very much for sukuk. At least it is not the ideal. So there are 3 basic types of investment in Islam. Is murabaha, short term, ijara sukuk, they're talking about bank and so on. Any sort of Islamic banking product are sort of short-term financing. But if you want to get the essence of Islamic finance spirit, you need to go into partnership type of financing. And that cannot be done through a banking mode. So you really need to promote non-banking financial institution, non-banking financial markets and activities, for example, Waqf, for example, Qardul Hasan, for example, microcredit, for example, those kind of activities, zakat, which is mandatory for Muslim, but for non-Muslim it is not. So we really need to find a marriage between Islamic commercial finance that we see in the market and Islamic social finance. Only exception that I see in Pakistan, akhwat, in Islam, I mean in the Quran, that's the only financial instrument that has been mentioned. But there is no much use of the Qardul Hasan in any part of the world, but akhwat has made history and I have visited them, and many people, many countries, and can follow this model for the benefit and get the essence to help all the people in a society to better their economic life.
Thank you so very much. Yes, please, last question.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Hena. I'm all the way from Islamabad. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for arranging such an informative session. Few suggestions I want to conclude. I have quite, but I'm just going to add a few on. Firstly, I would want to make your attention on the side that what would be the availability of data, because I'm a PhD researcher, so we have a really issue with the, when we are going to analyze for the data and we are going to make a comparison with the conventional or Islamic and we want to convince someone, there is really, it's a huge challenge. And unfortunately, we are not available with that for Pakistan, and we suffer a lot for that. First thing I want to, if our seniors can add something for data availability with the PSX or some platform if you can design, so we can get out of that. Second thing, the most important, the linkage between the research and industry. We lack for this. We have no platform for this where we can add. How we can do research in some different dimensions, we like again in a room, and how we can link with the industry and what the industry really wants from us. If we are putting so much effort, so it will be useful. And as for we are working for the research for Islamic finance, then and the government is looking for if something can be done for this. So that will really help government to get this role. One more thing I want to add, because if we can have some research supports for this Islamic development, because sir from Bahrain is also there, and they are doing very well every year, organizations of conferences in Bahrain. If you can get some grants, a separate fund for the research in Islamic finance, this will really help to the graduates to develop that. If we can have some courses in the university, that will definitely make a huge difference. One more thing I want to add, if we want to attract investors and moving from as we are transferring from conventional to Islamic, so what if we can develop, as you said, that a simulator sort of product, and there we can do a simple layer and we can learn, and that there is a part for conventional and there is a part for Islamic investment, and then they can do like putting the shares in the simulator, and they can get it that if I'm going to invest in conventional, so that will be risk and that will be returns, and if I'm going to move for the Islamic. So this will really create an effective and platform said though investment can move there. And if we can add asset baseline with the stocks of Islamic, or if we can add, so that is another avenue if you people can consider for this. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Actually, these are a few comments. The challenges that you have mentioned, I fully agree, and that's what these challenges are. The one that makes you a researcher, lack of availability of data. The struggle that you put in, that is the reason why our researchers are, are highly respected. So you have to bear with this. That is the challenge, usually in the third world country, whereby even the regulators, even the tax authorities, they tend to put such challenges of lack of availability of data. So you have to come across and face these kind of challenges. People are working, industry, academia, collaboration. Alhamdulillah, as we have mentioned earlier, as Dr. Kabir has suggested, that there is a need for that. There are various initiatives being taken by the regulators in the industry, like the establishment of Center for Excellences in Islamic Finance in Pakistan. Similarly, the Islamic banking institutions are always there to support these academic institutions willing to perform or do some research in the field of Islamic finance. They are there. We have a scholars learning and development program, internship programs. So things are on their way. And on an individual level, we can have, we can see what we can support, in which area we can collaborate. So with this, thank you so very much, the audience. It has always been a challenge to hold and have such kind of interactive session after having such a lavish lunch. So thank you so very much for being awake. Thank you so very much for being present there. I would like to thank our August panelists, Professor Dr. Kabir Hassan, Azhar Aslam Saab, Islal Alvi Saab, and Imtiaz Gharar Saab. Thank you so very much. A round of applause for all of them. Thank you.